This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. Episode 184, recorded November 30th, 2018. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So, today we are going to be talking about the winter preview. If you haven't checked it out, check out our main site, TheTotalScreen.com, and you can see the full winter preview article with YouTube links to trailers and all sorts of stuff. You can just kind of check out and see not just the shows we're going to be talking about on the podcast, but a bunch more as well. As usual, what we've done is picked out 10 of our top picks from the winter preview, things that we have either enough to talk about or just that we find interesting. These aren't necessarily ones that we think are going to be the best shows. These are ones that are kind of like worth talking about, I guess. So we got some of those on there. So you can listen to us chat about those, and then you can see a wider list of stuff if you check out the article. And you can go to our main schedule page and see an even wider list of stuff coming up. It's kind of narrows down as it goes. Goes from the schedule, narrows down to the preview, narrows down further for the podcast. After this, I'm going to write a top 2 article. The top 2 from our podcast picks. Anyways, before we get started, I wasn't going to go into any news this week just because we have enough to talk about with the winter preview. But one story...
Drop a bomb, didn't
they? Either drop a bomb or drop the ball. One or the other.
Drop the ball. It's really ruined my evening last evening.
Yeah, so Netflix dropped a big news bombshell that we kind of have to talk about because it's a show we talk about frequently on this podcast.
And we'll never talk about again.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Daredevil has been canceled. So we kind of saw the writing on the wall for this. We were kind of holding out hope that maybe it would survive.
I was holding out hope because people were saying after Iron Fist and Luke Cage were both canceled in such quick succession, Iron Fist was canceled right after its season premiered, or its season was finished. Luke Cage, season 2 of Luke Cage had been done for a while. They had announced anything, and then they announced that was gone. And I thought, and people were already freaking out. And I thought, well, maybe it's just that these 2 shows were just not doing the numbers Netflix wanted. Iron Fist,
they were the worst of the MCU shows.
Yeah. Iron Fist was never great to begin with, so I wasn't surprised about that. So I was okay, and I was just just if they cancel Daredevil, then there's something happening. Then there's something going on. And they did, so it confirmed everybody's suspicions that there is indeed something happening, that Netflix is severing their overall deal. So this isn't so expect Jessica Jones to get canceled, expect Punisher to get canceled.
We have seasons coming for those that are Daredevil's in post, or not Daredevil, I'm sorry. Punisher, I believe, is in post-production right now. Mm-hmm. And Jessica Jones season 3 began filming in summer. So it's still filming, I believe. So those shows they're not going to announce that they're canceled yet, No,
not till they air what they got coming.
So they'll air them and then immediately cancel them. Probably.
Anybody holding out hope that those shows are safe or whatever? No, it's obvious at this point.
There's the slimmest of chances for Jessica Jones, just because that show got people that weren't interested in just Marvel in general, that just were interested in that show by itself. But that kind of
these cancellations,
holding out hope for that ignores what's really happening here.
Yeah, these cancellations aren't about that. It's not about viewership. I don't believe for a second.
You could have said that for Iron Fist.
You could have made that argument for Iron Fist. For Daredevil, I don't believe for a second that the viewership was that low compared to other things Netflix has on.
Yeah.
like, no, like obviously I don't have their viewership. Nobody has Netflix viewership numbers because Netflix keeps that like a secret. So it's hard to gauge. Like people have extrapolated viewership based on like different things, but we've never had hard numbers, so it's hard. But it's so obviously to me not a viewership issue with this.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. There's a few things going on here. One is that Disney has their own streaming service coming, and on that service they're going to be launching a bunch of like much higher profile original shows based on the MCU, featuring actors from the actual movies in the MCU, stuff like a Loki movie or the Scarlet Witch and Vision, which apparently is now going to be called The Vision and Scarlet Witch. Is going to be the name of the show or something.
Sure, give the Vision top billing.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Right. Obviously, Disney Plus is doing their own Marvel shows. Again, like pulling out the big guns, right? Because these aren't like the other Marvel shows that Marvel has done across various different networks and services. These are actually pulling directly from the films.
Yeah. And in that case, in that sense, if that was the reason, because there's multiple reasons that this is probably attributed to why this was canceled. But in this thinking, for that particular angle, the idea would be that these are going to be much higher profile shows than what Netflix has. And Netflix they wouldn't want to put out, say like, oh yeah, well, make sure to watch the new directly MCU connected, like mega budget show coming to Disney Plus. And then if you have some time on the side, check out Daredevil season 4.
Yeah.
Like
all signs. Yeah. All signs point to Disney not actually having anything to do with these cancellations. This is purely Netflix. This is purely Netflix, and I think Netflix is doing it out of spite because of Disney Plus. Netflix doesn't want to have, now that Disney's going to be a direct competitor, Netflix doesn't want to have a direct competitor's content on their streaming service, apparently.
I don't think it's spite. I think it's business. I think it's, like I said, I think they're going to be competing directly with other Marvel shows on another streaming platform that are going to be clearly getting a higher priority from the studio.
Right.
From the ownership of Marvel. So like Marvel's going to be putting more into like the Loki series or the Scarlet Witch and Vision series than they're going to be putting into another Daredevil season. They have their A team on those series and they have their B team on Daredevil. And I think it's like that. Netflix doesn't want to compete like that. It's like they want to be the prestige content, They don't want to be playing second fiddle. So that's like one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is just in general the idea that Netflix wants to own their content completely. And this is something that they publicly talked about. This is part of their push into originals in the first place, is that they own their content. And some of their older content from when they first started that was owned by other studios is starting to come to an end now. Even like Kimmy Schmidt is coming to an end, and that's owned by Universal, NBC.
And it's not a Netflix-owned production.
Yeah. At the same time, though, there are like fairly new projects that they have that are owned by other companies. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, for example, is a project from Warner Brothers.
Right.
That's not Warner Brothers TV by them. But that can also go along the idea of who Netflix is playing nice with, who they have good contracts with. And right now they have really good contracts with.
Right now they have really good contracts with
Warner
Brothers. They got right now Netflix has a sweetheart deal with the CW, right?
Yeah.
Where like all the CW's shows go up on Netflix the moment the season ends.
Yeah, it's like a week after the season ends, like they hit. Yeah. The whole season drops on Netflix.
Netflix.
So that could be part of it as well, because you had brought up before we started the show that this whole Defenders lineup Netflix thing that included Daredevil as the first show, but also Jessica Jones and all that stuff that was that huge thing when this was announced. It was a big deal. I mean, that they were like announcing all these shows in co-development. That all happened when they had a sweetheart deal with Disney.
Yeah.
Disney had all their stuff, and then Disney started pulling their stuff. They still have some time on some of their contracts up, so you're still going to have like the most recent MCU movies are going to be on Netflix first and stuff like that. But, other stuff they've already pulled. Like, they've already pulled some back catalog stuff from the streamer. And, in the future, with their own streaming service coming, they're not too terribly interested in supporting Netflix.
Right. They pulled their stuff from Netflix.
Yeah. I don't think there's any spite here. Like, I'm not seeing anything that seems to be a non-sound business decision purposely out of like spite from one person in power to another. But I think that there's definitely the idea is like, well, we don't have a good working relationship with this company right now, so we're not going to rely on it, kind of thing. It makes sense in a business sense. Like I said, you don't want to, let's say they launch them close together, like if Disney's like, hey, coming this March on Disney Plus, we got, Loki series, and Netflix had previously just announced that March was going to be the release for like Punisher or something, a right. Punisher season. Like that's going to way overshadow Punisher. It's the same audience that they're going after, but that audience is going to go like, well, I really like Punisher and what the Netflix Marvel movies have done, but shit, this is like real MCU stuff going on Disney Plus. And that's what's going to be more interesting. It's much higher budget too. So they just don't want to play second fiddle. I think that's the main thing. They don't want to play second fiddle, and they don't have a good working relationship, and they want to own as much of their content as possible. And just kind of all of that together has led to them kind of just pulling ties with Disney.
Yeah,
pretty much entirely. Which, hey, that's fine, because, I'm gonna get the Disney streaming service. We got 3 good seasons out of Daredevil. At least we didn't have to see it collapse upon itself and turn into a pile of shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be more upset, but I'm actually pretty happy with where Daredevil ended. Like, at least they had the good sense to, like, end it like it could be a series finale instead of, like, ending it like, oh, there's this massive cliffhanger now.
Yeah, it has the feel of like a season finale now, or a series finale now. So, yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the cancellation. It's a little sad, but at the same time, we got to move forward. There's so much content. There's every day that there's just a slew of new content coming to a slew of different platforms, and you have to like start narrowing down further and further what you're actually going to watch. I never thought when all the comic book shows started coming out, I never thought there was going to be a point where I was going to be like, oh yeah, I'm only going to watch a few of these comic book shows because I just won't have time for all of them. But that's exactly where I already am. I'm already there, where I'm already like having to pick and choose amongst the genre that I like most. Right. I'm already like, I love this genre, but I have to pick and choose here.
But to be fair, like if a gun was held to my head and I had to choose, like Daredevil probably would have been like the one that I would watch over most of any of the others.
In the superhero area, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Going to like general comic book kind of adaptations, maybe not. I'd probably maybe pick Preacher.
I haven't really watched Preacher, so I can't say, but I would probably still go with Daredevil. I think like it was that good. For me, at least.
It's definitely good, but like I said, we got 3 good seasons.
Yeah, we got 3 good seasons. It ended on a great note. There's no lingering questions. There's no, like they wrapped everything up, right? They put Wilson Fisk back in prison. They put Matt and his friends back into like a good place. Where Matt finally made peace with himself. So they ended it while also leaving like open-ended threads to where they can continue. Like they had Kingpin's new wife, she could have taken over, start causing issues. Bullseye was still a factor, which they had that Bullseye teaser at the end to show that he is still a threat. So they had, so they left room for where they could go, but it wasn't like the ending of Iron Fist, right? Where the ending when Iron Fist was like, Oh yeah, get ready for the awesome shit next season. Oh, canceled. Sorry.
Finally, after 2 seasons of mediocrity,
Yeah.
we have a tease for something great. Nope, gone.
Oh God. At least that didn't happen with Daredevil.
And it didn't leave us like with a, in a bad place like Luke Cage did.
Yeah, like Luke Cage being like, what's going on with Luke Cage? Well, we'll never know now. So,
we'll never know.
He's a crime boss.
Yes.
Make up your own story after
from this point on to the end of time, he's a crime boss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, again, yeah. So I like that they I don't know if they consciously wrote it as a series finale, but at least it feels like a proper series finale.
Yeah. Marvel's claiming that we're going to see more Daredevil. Of course, that could mean anything.
They could just be talking about their comic books.
Yeah, it could mean, don't worry, there's still going to be more Daredevil in the comics.
Go to your local comic shop, kid. That's because they said the same thing after Iron Fist. They posted that and it's you can always go to your comic shop and get more Iron Fist. Thank you, Marvel.
You know what would be a smart thing to do, because Daredevil actually did have quite a decent following, is if they did a run of Daredevil that was a direct continuation of the Netflix series. How they did comic book continuations for Buffy and Angel? If they did a Daredevil season 4 comic book.
Yeah.
That would be kind of interesting.
That would be interesting. They could do that. I mean, they've done things before. It was just the old Flash show, right? The 90s. DC made a 1-issue comic book adaptation of that.
Yeah. So they could do something like that. That would be kind of cool. But there's other possibilities too. The show could be picked up on, Disney Plus, Disney's new streaming service. It'd have to change it a little bit because, they're not going to get the rights to the original 3 seasons. Netflix is going to maintain those, so they'd have to make some changes there. But they could also just kind of have the character pop up on something else. Now they could free that character up to show up in maybe one of the actual DC MCU shows, or not DC MCU, the MCU shows that they're putting on Disney Plus or something,
Right.
Maybe we'll see him pop up in the Loki show, or, Loki runs into Matt Murdock and needs his legal help.
Yeah, exactly.
We could get something kind of weird.
Maybe now.
Maybe the Winter Soldier one,
Maybe now we can actually
get
these characters in the Marvel movie universe proper.
Yeah.
Maybe we can have Vincent D'Onofrio show up in the Spider-Man movie.
Or it could go a little bit lower. It could go a little bit of a lower bar, and you could see Daredevil pop up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something.
Oh yeah. He could show up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's probably what's going to happen. Actually, most likely. I would not rule that out.
Like a 1 episode thing.
Yeah.
But there's possibilities where you can get the characters or different things to show up. But anyways, that's Daredevil canceled at Netflix. So let's move on to our main topic, which
we spent a lot of time on that news topic.
Yeah. That's fine, because I think we're going to fly through some of this.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about the winter preview. We're going to be talking about them in order. We like I said, we picked out 10 from the winter preview that we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about those 10 in the order in which they're coming out. So let's kick things off with Nightflyers, which a real quick rundown. Nightflyers is based on a book by George R. R. Martin, the author of Game of Thrones, or the Game of Thrones books, I should say, since they aren't actually called.
I feel like that doesn't feel like everybody already knows that.
Yeah.
Knows who George R. R. Martin is.
But anyways, he's the author of a book called Nightflyers as well, which is now being adapted for sci-fi. This kind of falls into the
George R. R. Martin
genre.
He's so hot right now.
But yeah, he's got a few other things in development as well, so that's
he does.
True, yeah. But Nightflyers falls into the space horror genre that you
would
attribute to things like Event Horizon, or
I was just gonna say it reminds me exactly of Event Horizon.
Does it remind you of Event Horizon?
No. but it's you say it's space horror, but it's not like Aliens. At least as far as I know. as far as what the trailers convey, it's not like aliens. It's more like a psychological horror.
Yeah.
At least that's what that's what I get from the trailers. Like, I have not read Nightflyers. I don't know anything about the plot. I only know what was in the trailer. So, like, there could be like a twist to it where it's like, it's something it's not being presented as, but like, as far as what the trailer looks like it's psychological space horror.
I thought it was about frequent travelers that travel at night on airplanes.
Yeah, it's that too.
It's the sequel to LA to Vegas.
It's obviously, if you're familiar with Game of Thrones, or this is going to be very, 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 very different.
Yeah.
Than you know what you're expecting. This is
You're saying this isn't going to be about Ned Stark catching a flight to Amsterdam in the middle of the night.
This is a completely different genre, like, and style to Game of Thrones. Like, can't get any more different.
Yeah, and also we should note, if you are excited just because it's George R. R. Martin, to temper that a bit with just the idea that this is going to be on the Sci-Fi Channel. This isn't going to have like $100 million budget for its season. That's not going to be the case.
No,
this is going to be basic cable budget.
Yeah, Sci-Fi ain't sinking HBO money into anything anytime soon.
Yeah. So this will be kind of like a smaller budget, no name cast kind of.
And this is also was based off of a short story George R. R. Martin wrote in 1980. It was expanded in 1981 in a short story collection, but this isn't like Game of Thrones where he's wrote novels upon novels of material and has more, it's just based off of a short story he wrote. So there's no grand fiction here. There's no grand lore or anything.
Yeah.
So there's that too. So again,
temper expectations.
Yeah.
But all of that being said, George R. R. Martin is a notable talent. And,
it won both the Locust Award for Best Novella and the Hugo Award for Best Novella. So
it's got some cred.
It's got cred. This is an award-winning short story. So expect something good, unless sci-fi ruins it somehow. Adaptations are tricky. You can have material that is great and it can be done poorly on screen, or you could have poor material that's elevated by the director. I'm thinking about The Shining, but I guess it's up to you to decide which one of those is true for The Shining.
You're talking about the miniseries from the 90s, right?
Well, I was thinking about both, because I was thinking the original Shining is a masterpiece of filmmaking, and then the miniseries is bad. But I'm not sure what the consensus is on the story it's based on, if that's supposed to be one of the better Stephen King stories. I don't know, I just know that the movie is hailed as a masterpiece.
And the miniseries is even better, according to Stephen King.
According to Stephen King, yes.
So that's Nightflyers. That's the first one on our list. Next up, we have a returning show, Counterpart. Did you ever watch any of Counterpart?
Not my tempo.
Yeah, Counterpart.
I think that went over your head.
I think so.
Did you watch Whiplash?
Oh, okay.
With J.K. Simmons?
Yeah.
Not my tempo.
I haven't seen Whiplash.
Oh, okay, well.
But Counterpart, as Will just mentioned, stars J.K. Simmons. He was in Whiplash, as Will mentioned, but he was also in the Spider-Man movies, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
J. Jonah Jameson. He was also
hailed as the perfect casting.
He was also the police captain in The Closer on TNT.
Yeah, he's has quite a catalog. He's also had a nice slew of commercials.
Yeah, he's done a lot of State Farm commercials.
And he also does is it?
Was it State Farm?
It's an insurance commercial. It's something else though.
It was an insurance agency for sure.
I think it might be Farmers.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, he's also, I believe isn't he the voice of the yellow M&M too?
Oh, I have no idea. If he is like that, that's news to me. just blew my mind.
I think he is. He does a bunch of stuff. Anyways, great actor, and Counterpart is like a showpiece for him. If you just want to like marvel at at Simmons at his best, Counterpart is great because you don't just have one Simmons, you have two. Because he plays two different characters. If anybody has watched Fringe,
no, he plays two different characters who are the same person.
Yes. If anybody has watched Fringe, you're kind of familiar with the idea of like
it's not twins and it's not cloning.
No, it's different
figure
dimensions.
It out. So okay, well, he just spoiled it.
It's you'd know that stuff within the first few minutes. So Counterpart is basically. It's about parallel universes. What's interesting is that these aren't like universes that were always separate. These were like, there's a specific point in time in which one universe split and became two.
Was it like the Mandela effect? Was it when J.K. Simmons' character realizes that it's the Berenstain Bears now?
Yes, that's the moment. But that makes it interesting because that, like you said, he's playing the same character, but that's even more true when it's done this way, when it goes from one universe being split into two. Until that point at which it was split, they were the exact same person. And then they were literally split into two, as was the whole world. And significant changes happened in each dimension and in each reality, but there's a bridge between those dimensions that causes kind of like a bit of an espionage story. So this actually, the show takes place in Berlin, and that's kind of like very telling because it's basically, this is like East and West Berlin espionage like stories. This is like what you'd read about if you were reading an espionage story taking place in the 80s in Berlin or something, except it's about different dimensions and it's modern and it stars J.K. Simmons.
It sounds super interesting though.
It's really interesting, but it's also very slow burn.
Oh, really?
So don't go in expecting like a thrill a minute, because that's not what this is. It's really smart though. It's really well acted. If you're really into espionage and like to see kind of like the plotting on the different sides and how things are happening with that, you're going to dig it. I think if you're into stuff like The Americans, you'd really like Counterpart. It's also very reminiscent of like a couple of seasons of Fringe in which they did basically the same story in which they had like these two different dimensions and they created a gateway between them, and then there were negotiations between the different sides. That's basically what Counterpart is, except where Fringe was more into like the genre-ness of it all, like the sci-fi aspect. In Counterpart, like what caused it, why it's there, any sci-fi aspects, that's all like irrelevant. That's not what it's about at all. It's about these two feuding sides and about the fact that because these people were exactly the same people up to a certain point, you could have people that have replaced people from one side to another, as agents. So you get some really interesting stories going on there with it. And it, like I said, it very much parallels kind of East German espionage stories. So if you're into that kind of stuff and like the idea of that, but with a genre twist, or you just like J.K. Simmons, Counterpart's a great show, and it's coming back for its second season.
Nice.
Next up, we have another returning show, Runaways. This is a Marvel show. Who did the original run on Runaways?
You mean the comic book?
Yeah.
Michael K. Vaughan, I think, created it.
That's the guy who did, like, Y the Last Man, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's Michael K. Vaughan did that. Joss Whedon did a run on Runaways. Some other big people have done on that too.
Brian K. Vaughan, Jesus, I said Michael.
Oh.
Brian K. Vaughan. Yeah.
I wouldn't notice any difference.
He was also like, Brian K. Vaughan was also a staff writer on Lost.
Yeah.
For a while, so like.
That's true. Lost actually had quite a bit of comic book talent involved in that show.
Yeah, it did. So there's that connection. Always have to make the Lost connection when I can make it. Sorry.
It's my favorite show, so I don't mind. But, yeah, Runaways has had like a series of really, high profile people attached to it too. Like I said, Joss Whedon did a run on Runaways as well. The series, when it was picked up, is from the showrunner of the OC, whose name escapes me right now for some reason, who also did like Chuck and stuff like that. So they picked like a really good showrunner for this kind of show. And as we said, it's a Marvel series, and it's basically about a bunch of kids that were friends, and then like an incident kind of pulled them apart a little bit, but they kind of come back together when they realize that their parents are like an evil cabal of villains.
Right.
And it's basically about them kind of dealing with that and dealing with their parents and, you know, being kind of moral people, but dealing with the fact that their parents are these villains and that it puts them directly at odds with their parents and with their parents' goals and plans.
Right.
It's a good show. I don't know if I'd say it's, you know, I surprisingly, this kind of was announced very close to like Cloak and Dagger, which came to Freeform. And I think the perception that everybody had, including me, and I know you, was that Runaways will be the good one and Cloak and Dagger is going to be hot garbage. Runaways was good. I think Cloak and Dagger ended up actually being better. But it'll be interesting to see where Runaways goes in its second season because, you know, they haven't really run away yet.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of waiting for that, you know? I'm waiting for them to kind of be on the road or to be kind of more moving directly. It was kind of, the first season was all about discovery, and I think the second season is going to be more about reaction. So first season, they find out what's going on, they're dealing with that, they're coping with it. Second season, they're resisting, they're fighting against the, you know, that's kind of what it seems to be heading in that direction. So yeah, I mean, there's not too much more to say. It's, if you like Marvel shows, it's a Marvel show, and it's on Hulu. One thing I can add is that as a Hulu show, I don't know how they're going to handle the second season, but what they normally do is, unlike Netflix, they don't just drop the whole season at once. They'll usually drop like a number of episodes, maybe like 4 episodes, and then they release like week to week after that.
Right.
I'm not sure what they're going to do with Runaways for its second season, though. Like, they already have the first season already did that, so they might just release 1 episode at a time.
Who knows?
From the very beginning. But, that's kind of not even really about the show. That's just how it releases. But that's Runaways. And that's another one we're looking forward to. Next one on our list here is Watership Down. Did you ever watch the original Watership Down? Are you aware of it?
I'm aware of it. They played it in, I want to say middle school. I watched it. Like, so long ass time ago. I know it's like fucking depressing as fuck. Even though it's cute animals, don't be fooled. It's depressing. You'll be fucking depressed for like a week after watching that shit.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's like, it's a program that is made for kids, but it's made for kids as like a lesson. Like
right.
It's meant to convey certain morals and lessons. And as such, it's pretty harsh, you know? And it's one of those like emotionally scarring things from, it's like a shared childhood memory for most people. Where I think a lot of people, if they hear Watership Down, they might not even recognize what it is. But if they see some like screen grabs or something from the movie, they're going to be like, oh shit, like it's going to suddenly come like a trauma come rushing back to their brain.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Watership Down was for me. Like when this was announced that they were making, when Netflix, I should say, was going to be making a miniseries adaptation of Watership Down, I was like, oh, what's Watership Down? And then I opened up the articles and was looking at pictures from the old thing, and it just kind of came rushing back to me. And it's still vague enough that I couldn't give you a lot of details about what the show actually is about, except the fact that it's about like a group of rabbits. And they're cute little rabbits, and they go on a harrowing journey that is depressing and messed up and traumatizing. So this is a show basically meant to traumatize kids for good reason, I guess, to impose certain morals and values. But yeah, Watership Down coming to Netflix. Good voice cast added in for this one. I know, I can't remember everybody involved in it, but I know, Nicholas Hoult is in this one. He played Beast in the new X-Men movies. So if you recognize him, he was also in Skins. He was the little boy in About a Boy. But yeah, Watership Down coming to Netflix. Get ready to depress yourself. Or traumatize your kids. It's a good opportunity to traumatize your children.
Good opportunity. Good bonding experience.
Yes. Next up, we have the Orville coming back to Fox. It's been a while. We thought maybe we were going to get this in fall, but it ended up being announced for just kind of the very end of the year for it to come back for its second season. For anybody who hasn't seen or heard of the Orville, I think pretty much everybody should probably have heard of it. It would even have a vague passing interest should have heard of it at least by now.
Know about it at least by now.
It's basically Seth MacFarlane's love letter to Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, it's not like a parody of it. It's not just like gushing about it. It's trying to be it. It's trying to be the next generation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's earnestly trying to be Star Trek.
Yes. I mean, there is some comedy that wouldn't be in Star Trek that's been put in here as well. But for the most part, it's just trying to be like a straight up Star Trek: The Next Generation if it just had kept going on. Like, it's just like, let's keep going with Star Trek: The Next Generation. This is the Orville. In order to accomplish this, they actually hired a bunch of people that were involved in Star Trek: The Next Generation, from like directors and set designers and
like the producer. I think like the producer of Star Trek, Brandon Braga, like, you know, I think he directed like the first episode, the pilot.
Jonathan Frakes, I believe, directed an episode in the first season. I know he's directing one in the second.
Yep, Jonathan Frakes.
Some of the old cast members from that show have returned now. From Next Generation are returning to the Orville.
Nice.
For season 2. Just in different roles and stuff. It's if you like Star Trek Next Generation, that's Orville is basically that.
It's interesting because Orville is airing directly opposite of an actual Star Trek show on CBS All Access streaming, and the two shows couldn't be any more different in tone and style.
Yeah. Star Trek Discovery on CBS All Access is much darker.
Yep.
It's got more of a serialized story.
It's way darker than like any Star Trek show ever.
Yeah. It's a very different take. It's like a very kind of modern, like more expensive kind of like it's kind of playing on those kind of demands for like, a Star Trek show.
Seth MacFarlane with the Orville, he's playing more to nostalgia.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think through the Orville, they even got the composer for Next Generation. The music is very similar, you know. So if you like Star Trek: The Next Generation, you should like the Orville. I mean, that's just it, pretty much, you know. If for no other reason than for the nostalgia of it. But it's coming back to Fox. And that should be fun. It's got some good little individual episode stories that they've already had, you know? In a sense, Star Trek, when it's at its best, is almost like Black Mirror or The Twilight Zone. It's like you have these familiar characters, but like each story is this kind of like new challenge, this new concept, you know? Like it's like, okay, well, what if this happened? How would this affect society? How would these things work? And Star Trek Next Generation was able to really play on that because they could travel around and discover new civilizations, and these new civilizations could have these problems and these issues, and then they could like do like a self-contained episode, but have continuing stories with the cast of characters on the ship. With the Orville, we're basically getting that again. In the first season, there have already been a number of good episodes that like are like really good self-contained science fiction stories. But yeah, we should be getting more of that, and even more of a Star Trek presence. Like I said, even more people who are involved in Star Trek have come on for the second season of the Orville. So that'll be good. And if you'd like the other Star Trek stuff like Discovery, there's a whole slew more of that coming to CBS All Access, but we just didn't add that in to our discussion.
Nope.
Next up, we have another returning show, Future Man. Future Man, I recently found out, and it makes a lot of sense, that this was actually created by the same guy who created Misfits, which is a
really?
British series that's just really weird and funny. It's Misfits is kind of like Heroes on crack. It's like Heroes, but they're kids and they're all, it's just messed up humor and stuff, you know? And, Future Man is kind of like, there's some aspects to that are just like so weird and so off, like from what you'd expect from a TV show of its kind, even that like, once I found out that it was from the same guy that did Misfits, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Besides the creator of Misfits, Future Man was also created by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldstein, I believe. Is it Goldstein or is it? I'm messing up his name, I think.
I don't know. I'm not.
Seth and Evan, who also developed Preacher for TV and, you know, have done a bunch of movies like This Is the End and Sausage Party and Superbad. So it's the two of them working with the creator of Misfits, creative Future Man. First season's already out on Hulu, so you can check that out if you want. Second season's coming now. It's about a gamer that's supposed to kind of like save the world in the future. So some time travelers come back to get him to be like their general to save the future with. But it's just ridiculous. It's just like right off the bat, you're like, it kind of almost annoyed me when I first started watching, cause I'm like, oh, you know, like they're doing all the video game stuff, but they're doing it wrong. You know, like, you know, when you watch like a show or something and they reference some, like a video game or hacking or anything computer related and you're just like, ugh, you know, like they're getting it so wrong, you know? And it's kind of almost infuriating. That was kind of my initial reaction to Future Man. I'm like, there's some funny stuff in it, but they're getting it so wrong. And then I started to realize that was kind of intentional.
Like that was the joke?
Yes. That's kind of what they were playing on. And then the show just started going in really weird places. And as it got weirder and weirder and weirder, it just kind of became like an obsession watching like just having no idea where the show was going to go. I mean, without spoiling too terribly much, like one of the characters is like this kind of brutal guy and ends up like becoming obsessed with being like a chef or something. Like the course of the show. And it's just like really weird the way it portrays those stories too. It's not just like some little side gag. It's like it kind of takes over his storyline. Like his storyline goes from being one thing to another. So yeah, definitely check out Future Man if you haven't already. You have a whole season of that to watch right off the bat, and then you can jump in on season 2 when it comes out. Next up on our list, another returning show, but this time this is like a return that people weren't really expecting, but that, you know, it's also a return to form. It's not just a return to show, but a return to form.
Well, we don't know if it's a return to form. I mean, it
seems to be, because even from the previews of season 2, you could tell like the mistakes they were making.
It seems to be, but the jury is out until
we actually see it, of course.
But this does look more promising than season 2.
It's taking certain aspects that were important to season 1, like the idea that it takes place over a very long period of time. Right. You know, that was kind of absent.
But the concern is going to be, is this going to be a rehash of season 1? Because they just
looks like very different character types too, which is good, because I've mentioned it frequently on the show, but the biggest problem with True Detective season 2 is that True Detective season 1 had a truly great character, Matthew McConaughey's character named Russ Cole, and basically season 2 was like, what if everybody was Russ Cole? And it was a disaster. Because you can't have every character be like this nihilist, you know, that's like really interesting. It just wears on you. It's like, it's not entertaining anymore. So that was like a huge failing of season 2. One thing I can say for sure, just from the trailers of season 3, is that these are not the archetypes of the Russ Cole character. Like when you watch it and you see these characters, these are not Russ Cole types, you know? And that's promising because they still look interesting. This stars, God, what's his name? Stars Cottonmouth from Luke Cage. Something Ali. I can't remember his first name, but anyways. He's the main character in this one. he looks kind of like a haunted character who doesn't necessarily want to be involved in the case, but is. They also are kind of playing on a much more like kind of brutal crime affecting innocence, which was kind of not the case in season 2 either, which kind of was another deterrent for that, but was a big part of season 1. So hopefully that's gonna kind of play into it as well. We don't know how much of a cult vibe it's gonna have, which was a big part of both seasons 1 and 2. But likely it will. That seems to be like kind of part of what makes True Detective True Detective.
Right.
But, yeah, it looks really good. What are your impressions of it just from the trailers that have come out?
It looks good. Looks promising. I'm definitely interested in seeing it. Can't say that for season 2.
Yeah. And man, it's weird to think that we have this, you know, because it's been a couple of years since season 2, and season 2 flopped hard. Like, you know, it didn't do too well with viewers, but it was a huge disappointment to critics. And they were very vocal about how disappointed they were with season 2. It got slammed in the press, like constantly. Week after week, each episode came out, just got slammed. It ended up being to the point where it was like, okay, this show isn't as bad as you're making it out to be. You know, like
Right.
At a certain point, you're just having too much fun destroying this show now, you know? But it was somewhat justified. Like season 2 just was not good in the way that season 1 was. It just didn't have that X factor that season 1 had. Just from the trailers already, it looks like season 3 might have that. Either that or they have a really good trailer cutter. A really good editor doing the trailers. But yeah, that'll be exciting when that happens. It's something that we just didn't expect to see. Next up, we finally have a show that's not a returning show. And this might be the show on this list that I'm most excited for, and that's Deadly Class. This is actually being produced by the Russo brothers, who just came off of Infinity War and are deep
A little
in the midst of
a little known indie film called Infinity War.
Yeah, they're deep in the midst of what is likely going to be called Avengers Annihilation, but could be called something else. Basically, the 4th Avengers movie after Infinity War.
Avengers. There, I said it twice.
That's the full name of the movie. Avengers. There, I said it twice.
Yeah.
But anyways, they're producing this show, and they even brought on some MCU blood, because they got Wong from Doctor Strange playing the headmaster of this school of assassins, which is what the show is about. The show takes place in the 80s, and it's about a school of assassins.
Based on a comic book series by a comic book writer, Rick Remender, who is a creator-owned series, I think, created for Image Comics. Yeah, Image Comics published Deadly Class. So it's based off of a existing comic book property.
Mm-hmm. Which we know the Russo brothers have been able to do well with.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, and it looks good. The trailer looks good.
Yeah, it looks good. It does.
The kind of punk vibe of the 80s, you know?
It was probably the thing I saw on the list that I was most interested, most excited about.
Yeah, definitely. I said the same thing. Deadly Class is probably on the list. It's the thing I'm most excited about. As far as new things, at least, that I'm most excited about. Yeah, and it looks like they're kind of pairing this up with Magicians.
Yeah.
Which seems like a good fit, because
Yeah,
Magicians is like a, you know, graduate school for magic, and Deadly Class is a school for assassins. So if you're into kind of like the Harry Potter deconstruction type stuff, like taking the idea of specialized schools and turning it on its head, then that's going to be a good night of television for you.
Yes.
It's the Harry Potter school deconstruction day.
Yay!
They'll market it with that slogan. But yeah, so that looks really good. I'm excited for that. I can't really say too much more. I haven't read the comic book.
I haven't either. I only know, like, it's a thing that exists, like, so I can't say too much more because I know, like, literally nothing about it other than, like, that.
My knowledge of the comic book started with the announcement of the show.
Yeah. Pretty much same, actually.
But it looks good. It looks really punk. It looks really interesting. So, and it's going to play on some 80s nostalgia on top of all of that. So that's cool for me as well. And I just mentioned The Magicians. That's the next show on our list. Obviously, we're excited about it. If you've listened to this podcast, you know we've covered every season of The Magicians. It was one of the first shows we talked about on the podcast. And we've continuously covered it. Every time a new season comes out, we cover it week to week. And it's a show that we thoroughly enjoy. And we've been enjoying all this time. So, yeah.
So we're glad The Magicians is coming back for a fourth season. That's the one show Sci-Fi has yet to cancel. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah, Magicians.
Where The Magicians is coming back, the last we left of The Magicians, there was an ancient evil that they thought they banished, but that has taken over Elliot. The librarians stole magic for themselves, and they're rationing it off, and everybody has no memories of who they were.
Yeah. They're all kind of living these alternate lives or something that have been kind of like assigned to them. And they're unaware of magic or each other. And, yeah. And then you have, like, the last thing we saw basically was that everybody was living these different lives. And then we saw the creepy reveal that Elliot has been taken over by this ancient evil.
Yeah, this ancient, that had to be, like, sealed away.
It's like this childlike presence.
Yeah, this childlike presence. So it's going to be interesting to pick up from that.
Yeah. Magicians likes to kind of reinvent itself every year. So like this last year was all about kind of them trying to get magic back. And so you had this new way of playing with it, with the idea that they didn't have any magic, you know? So all these characters that are like so used to having magic at their beck and call and use it for every solution, sometimes to their own detriment, had no magic available to them. And then they had to try to figure out how to cope with that and get around that. This season, that's still kind of the case, because magic is still kind of cut off to them to some extent. It's being rationed, as we mentioned, by the library. But now you have this like huge, powerful force kind of basically stalking them all down, and they're completely unaware of it or of why it would even be after them. They're in the worst possible situation they could be in.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so, yeah, Magicians coming back. Super excited for it. Can't wait. Don't drop the ball on this sci-fi. And lastly, the last show on our list is The Umbrella Academy. Don't have a lot to say yet because there isn't a trailer.
Also based off of a comic series by which was written by My Chemical Romance frontman Gerard Way.
And that's about as much as I know. You know a little bit more.
I know a little bit more. I've read some of the comics. I know the plot. The plot is basically this won an Eisner Award, this comic book. And I remember I read it and I was just like, oh my god, this is brilliant.
I assume an Eisner Award is an award given to somebody that ruins Disney.
No, an Eisner Award is probably one of the highest, like, an award given out to, like, the best comic books that they make. Like, it's an honor to get an Eisner Award. So
that's good. Yeah, there's
but it's about these superpowered children who are set in an alternate universe version of 1977, which was the year of Way's birth, actually, in which John F. Kennedy was never assassinated. And basically it's about like these superpowered children because like some cosmic like entity like impregnated like 50 women at random, and they all gave birth to like superpowered children, and apparently like only 7 survived. And so, and an alien disguised as a businessman tracked them all down and then raised them to be superheroes to fight some impending disaster. And then we pick up where they're adults and they've been estranged for years and they haven't talked to each other. And then they all come together. After the alien mentor who raised them dies, and then one of their members becomes a supervillain.
Yeah, this one stars Ellen Page.
Yep, which is appropriate. Yeah, so that's basically it, and it's actually kind of like insane and inventive, and there's all kinds of things like
sounds a little bit deconstructive too, which I really like deconstructions.
Yeah, it's really deconstructive. If I have to compare it to like, I'd say like it's a lot like Grant Morrison stuff. It's very Grant Morrison-esque. So it should be like fun to watch.
So that's Umbrella Academy. That's the last one on our list. So if you want to see some more of the shows come out in winter, as I mentioned before, check out thetotalscreen.com, and you can find our winter preview there and go through that and see if there's shows that you think that we missed that should have been on our list here. If you do, then send us a letter or something. Whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Send us a letter, like in the actual mail.
Send us using the post.
Don't tweet us on social media.
Send us a telegraph.
Don't email us. Don't just send us a telegraph. You know, we only accept telegraphs.
That's right. Or singing telegrams. We accept singing telegrams.
Yes. We prefer singing telegrams, actually.
But that's it for this week. So we'll end off the show as we always do by talking about what's coming up in the week ahead. On Friday, November 30th, 2018, Baby comes to Netflix. 1983 comes to Netflix. And F is for Family returns to Netflix. Then on Saturday, December 1st, 2018, Memories of Alhambra comes to Netflix. On Sunday, December 2nd, 2018, Nightflyers, which we discussed on the show, comes to Sci-Fi. And Berlin Station returns to Epix. Then on Monday, December 3rd, 2018, Hero Mask comes to Netflix. And The Sound of Your Heart reboot comes to Netflix. Then on Wednesday, December 5th, 2018, hot off the heels of its many award wins, The Marvelous Miss Maisel returns to Amazon. And lastly, on Friday, December 7th, 2018, Dogs of Berlin comes back to Netflix. Neo Yokio has a Christmas special called Pink Christmas that's going to air on Netflix. Bad Blood debuts on Netflix. The Hookup Plan comes to Netflix. Pine Gap to Netflix. And The Ranch returns to Netflix. So it's the many shows of Netflix Day. Next week, if all things go according to plan, we're going to be joined again by Alex and Mike to talk about Castlevania Season 2. So stay tuned for that one. That'll be a fun podcast. Probably a long one too, because whenever they're on, we tend to go like 2 hours or something.
Yeah.
But until then.
But then again, like I made the point that Castlevania isn't a long show. So there's not as much there to talk about.
Maybe an hour and a half. But anyways, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero. Check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best